Welcome everyone to our first Chicago Blend event. I'm Lindsay Knight, the founder of Chicago Blend and a VC at Chicago Ventures. So we're calling this event a town hall because we're using it as a way to let you hear from many voices. Although Blend is an organization of venture capitalists, we're hosting this hour for anyone and everyone who's interested in DEI and Chicago tech. The hour is jam-packed and is meant to give you a look at what we've been working on, but more importantly, to give you tactical advice and perspective from leaders in Chicago. Since you're already here, we assume you understand why this work is important. We don't think we need to spend time making the case for diversity, but rather we want to give you all a chance to tap into some of the best tactics our friends and partners have offered to share with the community. You can feel free to drop questions into the chat during our 3 lightning talks. And if you want to tweet along to share what you learn, you can use the hashtag #BlendTownHall. So I'd first like to spend a few minutes on the Blend founding story and then give you a short update on how we're planning for the future. Chicago Blend is a collaborative effort led by Chicago's venture capitalists to track, support, and increase diversity, equity, and inclusion at our own firms and at the startups that we invest in. Collaborative is a key word here. Venture capital can be a competitive industry, but our board members and partnering organizations know that to move the needle when it comes to diversity, we need to work together. We exist to help Chicago's tech ecosystem become the most inclusive in the world, and to make sure every venture capital firm in town is motivated to do the right thing. We exist because we all believe this work is critical, and we know that more diverse teams lead to better financial outcomes. We incorporated as a 501c3 this summer in order to take this mission to the next level. I've talked to many of you over the years about Blend, and I've been inspired by the support and energy from Chicago's tech community to get involved. So we know that there are a lot of organizations around town touching DEI, and we know that VCs have a unique and sometimes powerful place in the ecosystem. 2.5 years ago, we launched with a critical question. Where are the major gaps in demographics in Chicago's VCs and startups, and where do we, as VCs, have an opportunity and an obligation to enact change? Dollars aside, we think intentionality is an obvious start. And we've pushed the venture community to be intentional about team building and investing. We've prioritized creating transparency, visibility, and access for both founders and candidates to the sometimes opaque world of venture. Now, looking back at 2 years of data, we're happy to see some progress. In 2020, we reported that Chicago has seen increases in diversity in our venture firms, with women in venture, for instance, increasing from 28 to 33%. And here's an example of how we've used the data we collect in other ways. Back in 2019, we noticed a glaring gap in representation at the startup board level, with less than 10% of board members who are women and less than 2% of board members who are Black or Latinx. This felt like something we should tackle. We often make suggestions for independent board members for our portfolio companies. So we launched an initiative called the Blend List to help fill this gap. We often hear about a pipeline problem, that people don't know any Black board members or any women engineers. We know that recruiting can be tough, but we believe in our world, this isn't a pipeline problem. It's more of a network or an access problem. As in all of our initiatives, we hope to create network access and visibility to great candidates or founders who don't already have a way in. In that same vein, we've also focused on creating access through our open office hours for underrepresented founders and aspiring VCs. We've created pipelines of underrepresented talent by partnering with organizations like the Mom Project, Women Who Code, and Intello. And we've compiled the best resources for startups and VCs to get started in DEI. All of this information is available on our website, chicagoblend.org. So we know that this work is a marathon, not a sprint, and that there's a lot more that we can do. In 2021, we're kicking off the next leg of our journey to build a sustainable institution. Moving forward, our focus is hire and wire. Hire, meaning we'll focus on bringing folks who are underrepresented and may have non-traditional backgrounds into venture. And wire, meaning we'll focus on creating more connections between VCs and startups led by underrepresented founders. Soon, we're launching a startup matching program to help enable those connections. We want to make venture and Chicago's venture capitalists feel more accessible and eliminate that pipeline problem excuse. We want to provide VCs and the startups they back the tools and resources to build equitable and inclusive teams. We want Chicago's VC community to collaborate on best practices around DEI in order to better serve founders. We'll share more at the end of this hour, but we want you to be the first to know that we're hiring an executive director to continue building on these initiatives. We'll welcome your help as we launch that recruitment process. So we hope this hour is a peek into the work we've been focused on, touching our funders, our teams, and the startups we invest in. We're committed to putting in the work to move the needle and hope that you and the Chicago tech ecosystem can all benefit from being a part of the most inclusive and collaborative tech ecosystem in the world. Thanks again for your support of Blend and of this work. So now we'll get into the fun stuff. I'm going to pass it over to my board colleague, Ryan, who will spend a few minutes sharing the results from our latest startup data collection. Thanks.
Thanks, Lindsay, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Mundy, and I am a Blend board member, angel investor, and now entrepreneur, founder, CEO of Alchemy Health. As Lindsay mentioned, we've always been driven by data, and we suspected there was a lack of parity at many levels. And we have worked to understand where the biggest gaps are that we can have an impact on. And over the last 2 years, we focused on collecting demographic data for Chicago's VCs and venture-backed startups. If you want to check out our past data, you can view the data tab on our website. All of this work has been done in partnership with the Polsky Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and we're extremely grateful for their support. On this slide, here's a quick glance of the 2 years of VC data, which Lindsay referenced earlier. We're not yet close to parity, but we've been happy to see some small increases in both racial and gender diversity between 2018 and 2020. Again, you can check all this data out on our website. But now for some new numbers. We just put the finishing touches on our 2020 startup data, so you all are the first to see the numbers. And we're excited to share these. We collected data from just over 100 startups backed by Chicago's VCs and have seen demographic diversity increase in nearly every measured category from 2019 to 2020. Most notably, we saw an overall increase in racial and ethnic minority representation among all employees. In 2019, employees were 22.2% non-white in 2020, and it was a 35.4% non-white. And that's 59.4% growth year over year. So that's very exciting and very encouraging. The bulk of this growth was driven by increasing Hispanic representation. In 2019, representation was 7.2%. In 2020, it was 15.5%. That is 115% growth, which is extremely encouraging. For reference, Asian representation grew 26% and Black representation grew 31%. Every functional group surveyed, for example, technical roles, more than doubled its Hispanic representation from 2019 to 2020. Additionally, women CEOs we found were more likely to hire women employees. 50% of employees at companies with women CEOs are women. Companies led by men are 39% women. Women CEOs are more than 3 times more likely to have women board members than men CEOs. Similarly, non-white CEOs are more likely to hire non-white employees. 49% of employees at non-white CEO companies are not white. White CEO companies are 29% not white. Non-white CEOs are nearly 4 times more likely to have non-white board members. And I could speak from personal experience launching my new company that this is definitely a focus and something that I strive and work to represent and increase these numbers as well. And have a lived experience as a non-white CEO. The bulk of my staff is women and also non-white. So there's definitely correlation there. This is a lot to digest for sure in a couple of minutes. We have thousands of data points and lots of other nuggets to pull from this data set. But again, you'll be able to access this data on our website later this week. We know that data can tell a lot of stories. And so we'll always share the raw anonymized data so that you can parse it as you like. Aside from increasing representation, our hope is that you can use the data to benchmark in your own organization. Now I'm going to pass it on to my board colleague, Gail, who will tell you about our donors.
Thanks, Ryan. It's really exciting to see the data. We've been working hard for 2 years and very appreciative that many of you are joining us on this mission. And before I go further, I also want to stop and make sure that we thank our fearless leader, Lindsay Knight, who has been instrumental in getting this off the ground. So thank you very much to Lindsay and the rest of the board members. And now I am very excited to have a moment here to thank our sponsors, because as a 501c3 organization, we could not do this alone. So thank you to these folks. We have founding champion donors, including RelishWorks, Listen Ventures, Hyde Park Venture Partners, Steve Miller and Origin Ventures, Energize Ventures, and Manifold Group. And we're also happy to welcome our champion donor, Wells Fargo, and our supporting donors, who are Integrity Power Search and Cognos HR. And then finally, we're grateful to Denton's for providing in-kind legal support, and also, of course, to Polsky, who is our data partner. And unfortunately, we all can't clap for them, but we are very excited and really appreciative for these folks. If you're interested in learning more about ways that you and your organization can support, please reach out to us at info@chicagoblend.org. And then finally, that wraps up our sponsor section. Thanks again.